Today, I'll be showing you how to gold all the license tests in Gran Turismo 4. This will be a comprehensive guide to golding all 80 tests as easily as possible, and will include all the details to help you execute the tests. In this video, I'll be focusing on the B license for now, as doing all 5 categories at once would make this video really long. Now, for each test, I'll also use a rating system to show you how difficult I think each test is. Here, 1 cone is the easiest possible difficulty and 5 cones is the hardest. I'll also be defining any terms I use, as they may not make sense to non-racing fans. Be sure to pause the video so you can read all of it before moving on. Lastly, I'd like to give a few disclaimers before we start. I advise that you play in manual transmission and not in automatic. If you're new to racing games or unaware, here's a simplified way to put this. Manual theoretically enables you to go faster since you have control over when you shift. This may not be an easy adjustment for auto users, but it will save you a lot of frustration in the long run, as being in manual can get you that extra time off you would need to gold the licenses. Next, the entire video is referenced in HUD cam. This is because, well, that's the camera I use. I find it much easier for me to get the fastest times in this view, as well as the most fun, but that doesn't mean you have to as well. It's just a personal preference. You can get these exact same times in the other views, you'll just have to adjust the references accordingly. Also, be aware that some cars will have its traction control system enabled, and there's genuinely nothing you can do about it. Other games in the franchise such as Gran Turismo 5 and Gran Turismo Sport allow you to change certain settings, like drive assists, to help you achieve golds if you know what you're doing. However, in this game, the assists are part of the challenge. Lastly, coffee breaks are not included in these videos, as they are not necessary to complete the licenses. Now, with that out of the way, shall we begin? This one is pretty straightforward. You just go straight forward. Just hold the gas until you hit 27 to 28 miles per hour or 44 to 45 kilometers per hour and then shift up. You'll then watch out for your brake point, which will be halfway in the 0 of the 100 marking on the road. Make sure you've made a complete stop over the line, full car and all, and you're through to the next one. This one's just about as simple, but a bit faster. You'll hold the gas and shift up when you reach 35 to 36 miles per hour, or 58 to 59 kilometers per hour. This time you'll brake halfway between the bottom of the 200 marker and the short white line before the stopping block. Again, make sure you clear all 4 tires over the line, and just like B1, this one is finished. Okay, we've got our first big corner to deal with here. Also, shifting here is normal, which means you'll upshift just after the car begins to redline. Now, I'll fast forward so we can get to the turn. You'll also want to approach wide before you enter. The best braking point I've found is a bit after this tread mark. You'll also want to brake deep into the turn, as this will position you for a much straighter exit afterwards. Just turn in until you smoothly hit the apex and minimize the driving aids from being enabled, since they slow you down when active. Drive straight up the hill and cross the finish line. This is basically the same test, with a different braking point. That also includes when you should upshift. The car is also much faster here, like how B2 used a faster car than the Demio in B1. Now, we'll skip this part one more time since it's just pressing the gas. Again, making sure that we get as wide as possible before the turn. This time you'll brake at the last tire tread marking here. The brakes are much better on this car relative to its speed compared to the Del Sol, so we end up braking a little later than before. Granted, I do go a little wide, but I still keep up a good pace. Same as B3, minimize the driving aids as you exit and climb up the hill for the finish. Aw yeah, the first of many sightings of the pace car. This one takes place on the wonderfully short track of Tsukuba. The big theme of this test is to brake as late as possible. FF cars commonly have incredible stopping power compared to their speed, so late braking is crucial to getting this gold. You'll want to start most of the turns as wide as possible to get the maximum speed out of your exits. Of course, you'll still have to watch your TCS signal on your exits, or else you'll wind up accelerating without gaining any speed. Also, maintain the same line as the pace car as much as possible. It holds a pretty solid line for most of the track, which is impressive compared to most other tracks. On turn 7, rather than braking, you only need to lift for this turn. Braking is unnecessary unless you turn in too late. Just remember to approach it wide enough so you can keep your line as straight as possible. For this last hairpin, you'll brake just after the end of the dirt and shoot a little deep into the turn, similar to the past 2 missions. Exit narrow and follow the pace car down the straight. After all of that, you'll take this last turn pretty quick by hugging the inside using throttle control. By the time you reach the curb, you should be able to power out onto the outside edge of the straight. And that's the whole lap for Tsukuba. Wow, mega lap. Back to the brake 6. Back to the brake basics? Brake 6? Anyways, here you'll do the same thing as in B1 and B2. Hold the accelerator until you hit 35 to 36 miles per hour or 58 to 59 kilometers per hour. Now you drive for a bit and brake at the new designated brake marker. This time you'll brake at the short white line before the stopping area. Come to a complete stop and move on to the next one. Now this one is special. Just like the Viper, this one is tricky and much cooler than the others we've driven. Beginning with the gear we launch in. The second gear is the best gear to launch with, since the first gear will have you spinning for forever, giving you too much time to hate yourself for starting in first. Plus, it's one less gear you need to worry about. You'll then power through as normal until you hit the 830 to 840 meter mark. At that point, you'll start braking and begin swerving out of control until you come to a complete stop. And that's it, you're done. I'll also demonstrate what happens when you start in first gear. You'll notice that even with good throttle control, the car doesn't stop spinning out until the end. Now, to be honest, do these methods still get you a gold? Yes. It's still possible to gold starting in first gear in either case, as I'll show you here. However, are they the fastest and or the most convenient methods? Definitely not. Now, on to the next test. Oh yeah, we're 8 tests in and I've only had 4 different kinds of tasks. Except not really, because this is basically a mirrored B3 and B4. We'll start off wide as we approach the hairpin. We'll then brake about halfway between the 50-meter board and the turn. Try to overshoot the turn a little and aim for the apex just like in B3. If you end up too close to the inside, just hug it and power out so you hit the outer edge of the straight without lifting. Afterwards, cross that finish line and leave the menu so you can start B9. Another repeat mission, but the gold is a little more strict. Same principle here, just an adjustment to the braking point. This time braking earlier, right after the 50-meter board. You'll also need to watch out as your car does tend to slide out when accelerating and turning. Just maintain grip by quickly releasing the joystick occasionally and you should be good to go. Now it's the second pace car test. The big themes here are breakpoints and lifting. Also, for most of the track, you'll continue to stay in line with the pace car for its slipstream. Now, let's prepare for the hairpin. Start off to the right and begin braking and turning at the 1 marker on the right. Try to aim to overshoot the first apex. You'll then line yourself up to hit the next apex without going too far to the right and going off track. Afterwards, switch back to the left side to prepare for the next turn. You'll then brake and turn a bit after the 1 marker on the left. Make sure to shift into second gear here as well. Next, you'll just ease your way through the upcoming turn and give a small lift to help glide along the curb without losing any grip. Once you approach turn 7, stick to your right and begin turning in halfway between the 2 and 1 markers. You'll then brake just before the 1 and hit the apex to keep in the pace car's line. Climb up the hill, being sure to stay behind the pace car at all times for a little extra speed. Look to the right and lift at the 1 to keep traction while cutting the corner of this turn. You'll then keep up the momentum slowly as you head towards corkscrew. Look out to the right and brake right after the 2. You'll need to hug the outside edge until you hit the 1 marker and turn in. This will get you down corkscrew the most consistently. After passing through, you'll want to position yourself in between the middle and the outer edge of the track. Your line here will be very confusing as it doesn't align with how the track is shaped. You'll turn in pretty early and align yourself to make sure you hit the apex once you reach it. Power out so you can hit the outside edge and then turn back to the left side. Look to your left and brake just before the 1 marker and turn in. Lastly, you'll finish off the track by braking just before the 2 marker on the right and turning in on the 1. And that is Laguna Seca done in a Citroen. There really is a first time for everything. Here's our first off-road test. The physics for these are certainly much more different than standard circuit courses, so get ready to practice your throttle control. Here, you'll start and stay in first gear until you finish the uphill right-hander. Even if you rev limit, make sure to stay in this gear or else you'll end up going up the hill below 30 miles per hour or 48 kilometers per hour. Aim for the outside apex on the right and lift upon contact. Start turning in and apply the brakes to slow yourself down and spin for the hairpin. Use throttle control to keep your grip and not overshoot the turn. At the moment you start facing the end of the turn, begin accelerating and straightening out. Try to stay as straight as possible and reach that finish line. Here's what happens if you upshift on the hill. You'll see that you end up dropping much lower than 30 miles per hour and are not much faster afterwards, which ultimately results in a slower time. Swiss Alps is always a fun track, especially this section. You'll start by driving straight out until you hit the outside edge of the dirt. Hug this side until you reach this bright block in the dirt. Begin turning in to hit the apex, and whatever you do, do not slow down in any way. Pay attention to how your car sounds and make sure the car isn't slowing itself down. Avoid crashing into the outside wall and you'll have yourself a gold. This test is a strict one. Stick to the left until you pass the shadow of the last tree, turn in, and slow down until you can comfortably make the turn without any throttle. Now use some throttle control to maintain your hug. Power out at the end of the curb and make sure you take full advantage of that outside curb on the straight. Okay, now this test is probably the most difficult test in all of B license, as well as the easiest test, depending on how you go about this. I'll start with the most skillful and as a result, the hardest. Take the inside of the first turn and hug that edge until you hit this tree's shadow. Turn in and make sure you hit the apex of the turn at the entry. Begin braking right before you hit the apex and slow down until you can hit the next apex at full power. Keep full power as you try to maintain a smooth and straight line throughout the rest of the turn. Hug the right side afterwards, and you'll finish the test with a lenient 11 milliseconds shaved off. Wow. Well, I did mention another way, but it's not really that. Okay, so moving on. Oh boy, the PT Cruiser. I don't like it any more than you do, but it's necessary to completing the B license. So just live with this mistake of a car for a couple minutes. Starting off with the first set of turns, maintain your line with a pace car to build up speed. As you approach the uphill section, stick to the inside more as you enter the turn until you're over the curb. These are some pretty wide curbs, so don't be afraid to leave the asphalt to make the turns. Once that curb is ended, begin turning into the next one. Start slowing down so you can make the second turn and power out once you've started touching the curb. Straighten out on the left, then immediately head back over to the right to set up for the next turn. Once you hit the downhill section, turn and brake into the next turn. Keep turning in the same direction until you're halfway between the curbs of the next and last turns. Switch from turning left to right and be sure to get as close to the apex as possible. Finish on the left and continue downhill. You want to be looking at the grass for your next braking point. Begin braking once you see the split between the light and dark grass and begin turning in. Power out once you hit the apex and continue following the pace car until you're up the hill. At the crest, begin braking away from the pace car and aim for the inside edge. Try to hug the inside as much as possible until you hit the curb. At this point, just power out until you're on the right. Fall back in line with the pace car and head into the big ol' hairpin. Start braking after the third billboard or the last billboard you can see when approaching. Circle around the turn, making sure to double apex this section and maintain maximum exit speed. Follow behind the pace car as you approach the winding S's. Be sure to cut as much as you can to keep a tight and straight line. Be sure to slow down before the last 2 turns so you don't end up screwing over your line or ending up in the grass and failing. Stick to the pace car until you reach the all gravel section. Hug the left until you reach the weird change in angle there and turn in while slowing down a bit. Keep to aiming for the apex and power out once you reach it. Stay on your left and brake when you're halfway through the cones. I ended up shooting past my line because I broke one cone too late, but I recovered pretty nicely by making sure I turn in as much as possible while taming the TCS. Stick behind the pace car for one last time and you're through. B license graduation test. This one can be a bit tricky to get. After gaining control, dip your wheels a little on the grass on your left. After the start logo disappears, turn in and aim to cut the apex. You should lose a bit of the rear because of the grass, so just make sure you make the turn without losing a lot of speed. Straighten out on the left and continue along the track till you get to the hairpin. Hold on the left and brake at the end of the dirt. Shoot a little past the apex and cut in so you can aim for the late apex. Make sure you hold the power, keep it straight on the exit, and stick to the left. And just like that, the first 16 license tests have been golded. Pretty easy, right? If you learned anything or found this video helpful, please give this video a like. Also, if you want to see more of this series in the future, click the subscribe button alongside the notification bell to know exactly when the next video is uploaded. I'll be posting these weekly, so catch me next time where I'll show you how to gold license A the best possible way. Thank you so much for watching and keep up the good pace.